So when getting into Fallout 4 mods and really trying to construct my favorite Fallout 4 playthrough, something I've noticed numerous times is that if you just take a couple of mods that have pretty interesting or some more unique interactions with one another, or even edit a fundamental game mechanic in Fallout 4, you could end up vastly overhauling or even changing up your game in a significant way. You aren't required to have some crazy 200 mod load order. Even with just 20 mods or less, you could have a significantly different experience if those mods happen to work in tandem quite well. As you can imagine, in this video, what I'm going to be showing off are some mods that do just that. Change your game in a significant to interesting way. And specifically for this video, I tried to focus on some mods that you maybe weren't as familiar with. Some mods that are either older, got updates along the line, but didn't get a lot of attention, or maybe you're new and you just haven't heard of them, but do create a very interesting and unique experience in Fallout 4. So one of the first mods I want to talk about is a super interesting one that I imagine quite a few of you have actually forgotten about, and that is Knockout Framework. So this mod adds in a pretty interesting and fundamental new mechanic into Fallout 4. The ability to incapacitate enemies and basically knock them out in a non-lethal way. And although that is kind of the fundamental feature added in by this mod, some other mods build atop this, adding in new non-lethal weapons into the game. I don't have a ton of interest in it. That's cool, but it's also not one of the big reasons I'm interested in this one. What I'm interested in is the death alternative. So in Fallout 4, one of the very fundamental features of the game is saving and death. Regardless of which mode you are playing on, survival mode or one of the other difficulties, when you die, you load a past save. That's just how the game works. You lose progress as a punishment, or if you're playing in a more regular mode, you just quickly load to an autosave. But Knockout Framework has a death alternative functionality wherein, upon death, you do not just reload a past save, but you are functionally knocked out. So you can configure how all of this works, but my favorite configuration is several hours later, typically about 8 hours or so, you'll wake up at a bed that you last slept in. So this typically is going to be one of your settlement beds. You'll be crippled, have low HP, and also may have had a ton of your items stolen. But those items aren't necessarily gone forever. Even though you may not have any more medical items, weapons, etc., you will now have a quest to actually go get those items back from the same people that just took you out. And this death alternative creates a really cool and interesting dynamic for Fallout 4, mainly because of how it interacts with other game systems that you could also mod. Because the vast majority of the time, you are going to be waking up at your settlement, at least based off my configuration, or really where you're storing stuff is your settlement. This mod actually gives you incentive, especially if you're playing on a higher difficulty where death is inevitable, to store some stuff at your settlement. Keep stockpiles of items, whether it be stim packs, weapons, ammo, etc. So you go back to your settlement, re-gear, perhaps build up your settlement a little bit in the process, or actually have your settlement generating things for you. Then you go head out and try and recover all of your items again, but now it's higher stakes. Using this mod in tandem with something like Sim Settlements just makes the settlement system a lot easier. Sim Settlements 2 in particular adds in a bunch of great functionality for just automating the construction of settlements, making them valuable but not having you actually handcraft every structure or industry. Another great tandem mod in addition to Sim Settlements is Vertibird World, which allows you to craft vertibird stations at your various settlements and then actually use that as a fast travel alternative on survival mode. So over time, what you end up doing is creating this network of settlements using Sim Settlements, but then also vertibirds to travel around the Fallout 4 Commonwealth, because if you die, and if you're playing on a hardcore survival mode, you will be dying, you need these settlements and some of the items you are leaving at them as a backbone to actually recover all of your stuff again, or even if you fail at recovering your stuff, just some loot and items to continue exploring this world. It's only a couple of mods, but all of them coming together do create this pretty interesting and cool dynamic. And if you're wondering why I chose this mod in particular and not some of the other death alternatives, this is honestly one of the last remaining death alternatives that actually works for Fallout 4. Many of them are broken, and Knockout Framework remains as one of those last available options to create this pretty cool experience. And I could see some of you feeling that perhaps playing like this makes the game a bit too difficult, but I actually think it's a really cool hardcore alternative. Like maybe don't even bother with survival mode, just play normal Fallout 4, except on death, the hardness will go up a lot because you're not just going to reload a quick save you just made. You'll actually have to go back there. And I think in that sense also, it's a cool variable to toy with, either making survival mode or some kind of hardcore playthrough even more hardcore, or if you want to spice up just a regular playthrough where you're not getting as intense, it adds in something cool or interesting that makes death a lot more fun. Fallout 4 is rated M for mature. Despite that, a lot of times when playing the game, it doesn't really capture that post-apocalyptic vibe. By default, the game doesn't always make it feel like the world was turned upside down with the bombs dropping. And although I have a couple of mods that I do want to show you to help improve that, showing off these mods will typically lead to videos getting demonetized. So to help cope with that, I did get a little bit of help. But do you know what won't lead to this video getting demonetized, and in fact may save the monetization overall? Today's video sponsor with War Robots. Okay, so this isn't even part of the ad, but I've been having like way too much fun with this game. Like, I literally have a mountain of B-roll footage I could use here. So War Robots at its core is a 6v6 tactical shooter that you could download totally for free right now. You are going to be unlocking, customizing, and upgrading robots. There are over 90 different robots to choose from, each having their own abilities, whether it be jumping, flying, healing, or even stealth, as well as all those various armaments you see on robots you can upgrade and change. Maybe you're not a huge fan of cannon, so you could switch to a onslaught of rocket barrages. This game is going to suck you in. It has a complete hold on me right now. I'd save up, buy what I thought was the perfect robot, apply a few upgrades to him, dominate a couple of matches, then all of a sudden, somebody would take me out with an even cooler, different robot, and I'd be back to saving, trying to unlock that one. So don't wait, and using the link in the video description or my QR code on screen right now, you can get War Robots totally for free on either mobile devices or PC. And if you do download it via one of these, you're not only helping out this channel, but you'll also get a starter pack which includes a robot with a weapon, a unique skin, plus 100 gold and 50,000 silver. And thank you again to War Robots for sponsoring this video, as they really are my protection against the demonetization gods. Okay, so now that the demonetization gods have been successfully subdued, I do want to take a look at a couple of other mods that are definitely on the darker side with Fallout 4, but I think actually overhaul the game and your interactions in the game in a pretty notable way. So two of the first major ones I want to take a look at are Raider Children and Other Horrors of the Commonwealth, as well as Mutied Dead Bodies. Both of these actually making similar but interesting changes to Fallout 4's Commonwealth. So Raider Children, right off the bat, is going to add a much darker side to the Raiders in Fallout 4, as now sometimes they will recruit or even abuse the labor of some of the kids around Fallout 4's Commonwealth. So now from time to time, they will pop up in combat among the ranks of other raiders. There's a variety of types here, but even further, you'll sometimes have opportunities to actually set these guys free, release some of the potential captives. But just overall, I think this really serves to give a much darker side to the raiders, which is definitely expanded upon with the other aspect of both of these mods, and that is actually some of that environmental storytelling, or really just setting the stage for some of these darker factions. As the other side of the Raider mod, as well as the Mutied Dead Body mod, will make it so you'll actually find a lot more basically props or set objects as you go to some of the various Raider and even super mutant settlements across the Commonwealth, whether it be traders that were trapped, flayed bodies, or bodies in various states of disarray. And in fact, what these mods will come together to do is create a lot of handplay scenes like these that really showcase a dark side to the Raiders. And although on one hand it kind of does have that shock value, it reminds you that you are exploring and interacting in a very messed up world, it also actually served to make some of the factions where these are placed actually seem bad or evil. A lot of times when playing Fallout 4, the Raiders are just that death fodder. You've killed them so many times, you've cleared out these bases so many times that you're kind of just on autopilot taking down some more enemies. But when you walk into one of these bases and you start to see some of these horrors added in by some of these mods, it actually makes you stop and really feel something, and actually gave me a lot more motivation for destroying that Raider base. It's definitely an interesting one, definitely not a mod for everyone, but I think adding that darker side, similar to what we see in the first two Fallout games, is definitely a healthy addition if that's something you're interested in. In a similar vein, something that will add in almost a bit more reality with some of the enemies you face is MDS. That's standing for Murder, Death, Scream. And more or less what this mod's going to do is replace some of the grunts, screams, or other noises made by humanoid enemies in Fallout 4 to actually be a bit more visceral and realistic. If you're shooting a raider or another enemy to low health and they are on the cusp of dying in game, they're probably going to scream and they're probably going to be quite horrified at this reality, so this will add in that as a mechanic. And I think it really is just better showcased to actually listen to that audio and those interactions. And I think this mod is yet another one that actually makes you realize the kind of consequence of your actions. Like when you clear out an entire raider base, you actually are taking down a ton of human NPCs. And I think this mod does a better job at actually making you feel that compared to the typical grunts you've heard 1,000 times in Fallout 4 already. So those are a set of mods that will make Fallout 4 darker on a more psychological horror level, and definitely going for that more horrific vibe. If you're looking for something even a bit lighter, but also extremely terrifying, perhaps even scarier in some sense, I got a couple of mods that will definitely make Fallout 4 into a horror game. First off, Darker Nights, make the nighttime actually darker so you really can't see that much. You turn on survival mode, download the survival options mod, and crank these little sliders up a bit, this making it so enemies will deal more damage to you, probably actually one-shot you, but if you have a high caliber weapon, you'll one-shot a lot of enemies also. This really ups the ante though, and ups that fear factor. You download the Feral Ghouls, want some chocolate mod for obvious reasons. You might think this one's pretty silly, but trust me, on survival mode at nighttime when you can barely see anything, having one of these guys run at you is actually terrifying. And last but not least, one of the new mods that really brings it all together is Feral Nights by SKK. As in effect, what this is almost a simple zombie apocalypse mod for Fallout 4, as at nighttime the feral ghouls come out and are hunting. You can configure how many will spawn in a given group, or you could just randomize it like I have in the background. And then more or less, if you are not in a safe space or one of your bases at nighttime, you will have a horde of zombies, or technically feral ghouls, running at you screaming for chocolate. And they could also one-shot you because of the changes you made on survival mode. This is quite literally one of the scariest situations. Like actually getting caught out at night with this mod in Fallout 4 is terrifying, which if you're playing on survival, you might be walking from point A to point B and not have an easy place to sleep or take a rest. This really ups the fear factor, as funny as it also is to have these zombies trying to eat your brains while screaming for chocolate. If I had a heart rate monitor, you could definitely see the effect this was having on me.
Chocolate?
So with that said, those are 10 game-changing mods to transform Fallout 4 in a variety of ways. I feel like there were 3 major categories here. I wasn't really sure what to title this one because although I'm technically showing you 10 mods, I'm not necessarily referring to all 10 as individually being game-changing. Kind of 3 clusters of mods that I think can be quite game-changing overall. So either way, hopefully you guys didn't feel misled with this one. It's actually a lot of fun making these videos and kind of finding these interesting complements between one mod or another, where in just a couple of downloads you could actually have a pretty distinct and unique experience, which is definitely my favorite way to mod Fallout 4. With that said, as always again, I thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.